On behalf of Carolyn Smith and Celeste Moya, we'd like to welcome you to the second edition of Coffee with 3C. This morning, our topic is long-term care, the tale of three mothers. And as many of you know, we try in this 15 minutes to bring something that's timely, of interest to you, that may be impacting you directly or indirectly. As I mentioned a minute ago, if you have questions, please put them in the question box. We'll try to get to them during the call, and if not, we'll reach out to you individually afterwards. You know, at one point, we thought of long-term care as a financial planning tool, and we've come to realize, as many of you have, that it's much more than that. It's really a family harmony tool. And it's a way of keeping family members together when a loved one needs assisted care. For example, my mother-in-law is 97 years old. She lives in Tyler, along with my brother-in-law and sister-in-law who also live there. And several years ago, she had to go into an assisted living facility. For the past several years, her long-term care policy has been picking up the expenses of that facility. And that's allowed her to maintain her dignity. And it's also allowed my brother-in-law and sister-in-law not to have to devote an awful lot of their time and some of their expenses to it, which would ordinarily fall on them since they're in that town. So it's something that we think is near and dear to our heart. We've had personal experience with it. I know Carolyn's had a couple of experiences, and I'd like her to share those with us now, please.
Thank you, Todd. My story begins in January of 1985. My dear grandmother dies at the age of 86. My mom, for 3 years, personally provided much of her care, but the last 2 years were spent in a skilled nursing facility in Austin. Well, Mom, being the oldest of 5, took responsibility for paying the bills, which in this case, it meant finding a way to mortgage the family farm. Well, just one short month later, in February, my dad was diagnosed with cancer, and he died 5 months later at the age of 59. We were fortunate, with the help of 24/7 nursing care, to provide his wish of dying at home. Well, my mom now was sad, exhausted, and scared. She gathered me and my sisters and said, "Please help me. There must be a better way to plan for long-term care." Well, being in public accounting at the time, I had recently read an article in the Journal of Accountancy talking about a relatively new product called long-term care insurance. Did a little more reading, talked about it with Mom and my sisters, and ultimately Mom applied and purchased a policy. And then she surprised us by saying to all of us, "Now I can celebrate my retirement." And oh, did she. With 3 grandchildren, her joy of volunteering and fulfilling her promise to my dad that she would travel. Well, about 18 years later, Mom's health changed. And with the help of a professional care manager, we found just the perfect place for Mom in Austin. You see, money was of no concern. Between her pension, Social Security, and long-term care insurance, we could find exactly what was right for Mom. And Mom was so proud that over the next 10 years of her care, she could continue to give to her church and give to her grandchildren as she had always done. Well, in 1985, we had had a similar discussion about long-term care planning with my husband's mother. My husband being an only child, we thought only appropriate that we have that kind of conversation. Unfortunately, my mother-in-law was not open to talking about long-term care and certainly did not like the idea of us paying for a policy for her. Well, when she turned 90, we were fortunate that my husband was in a position to take full retirement from the education system because his mom needed him. She needed him to help provide her care, facilitate her care, and also provide financial support. You see, her savings, her Social Security, her retirement, they just weren't enough to pay for the level of care that she needed. And so for the next 2 years, we were proud to be able to provide her with the level of care that she needed and deserved and was comfortable, and we enjoyed spending time with her. But I can share with you the financial stresses would have been a lot less if we'd also had that financial tool of long-term care insurance. Well, some of the statistics pre-pandemic that I'd like to share with you that I think echo in these stories is that 70% of us who turn age 65 will sometime in our lifetime need some type of long-term care services. 75% of those providing the care services will be female. And 63% that if they are one of the caregivers, Providing care to their loved ones impacts their daily ability to do the job, to do their duties on their full-time job. And lastly, when surveyed, 9 out of 10 of us say we wish our advisors would talk to us about long-term care planning ideas. So Celeste, with that in mind, could you give us some thoughts about how to have the conversation with families and with our advisors about our long-term care planning goals?
That's a great question, Carolyn. So everyone, including insurance companies, is still developing information on what recovery post-COVID-19 may look like. We're not sure if it will cause any ongoing health issues or how it may impact the cost of care in the future. But one key question that we do need to be asking ourselves is, what planning have I done in case the need for care arises? And this is a conversation that needs to be had not just with our advisors, but also with our family and anyone else that we want involved in our planning. We do know that most people are being extra cautious and taking social distancing seriously, and this has resulted in increased interest in receiving care at home. However, even pre-pandemic, the demand for home health aides was expected to exceed the number of them available. And because of the current situation and the possibility of being exposed to a virus in a facility, that demand has increased. And what that has caused is that home health care costs are also expected to increase. They were already projected to continue increasing, but now that this demand is heightened, that cost will more than likely increase at a much faster pace. And in-care facilities are also expected to have to implement new protection and procedures because of the virus, and that will more than likely also impact cost. So there's a lot of uncertainty regarding the impact of the virus, how it may accelerate or increase the need for long-term care, and what that care may look like and cost in the future. But these are all things that we know now that we need to take into consideration in the planning that we're doing right now. And another key thing is that our high net worth clients also need to consider long-term care planning. Many times they come to us and say, you know, I can self-insure, and they probably can. However, there may be some financial exposure that's not being considered. While clients may have the ability to self-insure, frequently what we see is that they lack the liquidity. So determining whether to self-insure should be a question of liquidity and not solvency. And we all know that liquidating assets can be expensive. It can jeopardize a financial plan, ultimately affecting things like retirement and legacy planning. However, a strategically designed long-term care policy or long-term care plan in general can mitigate some of that financial exposure and provide tax-free benefits.
So we'd like to challenge you with 3 questions we've asked ourselves. Number 1, how much confidence do you have in the plan that you currently have or your family has? Secondly, how much clarity do you have on what you want that plan to do? For example, if you've got a caregiver that comes in, who's that caregiver going to be and who's going to pay that fee? Secondly, if you don't have the ability to take care of yourself, who can step in? Who's an agent that can step in and make decisions on your behalf? And the third question we would ask you to consider is, who's going to be impacted and how will they be impacted if you don't do this planning and the possibility is there and you become disabled and not able to take care of yourself? Who's going to be impacted and how? So with that, I'll turn it back to Celeste and ask Celeste that over the years, we've seen many of our clients turn over their risk for early premature death to a life insurance company. We know there's some options for that with long-term care. Can you explain what those options are and also how those options have evolved over time?
Yeah, absolutely. So in the past, the only option really was standalone long-term care, and it was set up as a use it or lose it policy. Additionally, premiums were not guaranteed, and many of these policies have experienced really substantial increases over the years, many double-digit increases. Today, we have hybrid long-term care policies, or that's kind of how we refer to them, because they offer a benefit whether it's used for long-term care or not. So they allow you to maximize your long-term care coverage while still providing a small amount of death benefit. So if you never use the long-term care benefit or only use a portion of it, a beneficiary can still receive the remaining proceeds. So it's no longer use it or lose it. With many of these policies, premiums are guaranteed. That provides an additional level of security. The benefits are tax-free as long as they're used for qualified long-term care expenses. And there's other great features such as inflation options to keep up with the rising costs. There's multiple benefit duration options. There's couples discounts. And with some of these newer policies, they even allow family members to provide the care and be compensated. In the past, only licensed individuals could be compensated. But hybrid policies are only one option. There are also life insurance products with long-term care benefits via a rider or essentially in addition to the policy. These also allow you to primarily maximize your life insurance coverage, and long-term care is a secondary benefit in these policies. And they have many similar features to what I just described in the hybrid policies. There are also annuities that offer long-term care benefit. We're seeing regular annuities being rolled into these annuities with long-term care because the insured can continue that tax deferral during their benefit period. So the benefits are tax-free. And once again, it offers many of the options that I described with the hybrid policies, including not being use it or lose it, because any remaining proceeds can be left to a beneficiary. Now, as we discussed on our last copy with C3, we have seen price increases, also not just in life insurance, but also in long-term care due to the continued low interest rates. And we expect that there may be some medical underwriting changes due to COVID-19. Perhaps there may be some additional questions. There might be some declines for those that have had COVID, and some other things that we don't even know of yet as far as questions or changes in the medical space. But with all that said, we still have access to very competitive products that have competitive premiums and flexible design options that can fit into your specific long-term care planning.
Celeste, thank you so much. We know that you may have questions that we haven't touched on today in our time limits, and so please don't hesitate to add them to our question box and we will get back with you. I hope if you've seen long-term care is really a family discussion, and we hope that you will have that discussion with your advisors and with your family. And then, as we said before, we hope if you take nothing else away from this today, that you'll take away these 3 points. Review, review, review. It's even just as important in your long-term care planning as we see those changes happening. We wish all of you a happy and safe 4th of July, and certainly wish all of you to stay safe and happy and healthy. From all of us at C3, we look forward to collaborating with you.